I'm ashamed to say, sometimes when I'm deep in a project, my shop starts to look like this. I lose a lot of what would be productive time looking for the same things over and over again. If you spot my tape measure in this mess, let me know. To solve this problem, I build this small tool cart on wheels that will roll around to wherever I'm working. It holds the essential tools, screws, bits, and jigs that I use most often. This isn't a full build video, I'm just going to hit on the interesting stuff. Hopefully it will give you some useful ideas you can use to organize your own workspace in a way that fits your needs. This project was also a chance to try out some new material. I got these boards of teak for a few dollars a board. Yes, per board, not board foot. Teak is grown locally here, and all of these boards have a defect of some kind or another, hence the price. I ran it through the planer and cut out the best parts to glue up panels, which I then joined with dados to make the cabinet part of the tool cart. This is the first thing I've made just for myself to keep in years, so I wanted to make it nice. Stick around till the end to see how I got this continuous grain effect across all the drawer faces. Let's get started. This flat bar serves to hold measuring tools. I cut a piece of 2-inch flat steel to length and drilled a hole in each end. If you don't have steel laying around, you could also use an old hacksaw blade if you file the teeth down. I'm using 4 washers on each side as spacers, so the tools can slide behind the bar. I marked the drill holes with an awl and then installed the bar. I ordered these magnetic bars to hold tools. The process to install was straightforward. Each is held by 4 screws. The magnets are plenty strong to hold the tools I need. And even when I roll the cart around, nothing falls off. I ordered these plastic tool mounts from Amazon. They're the same shape as a DeWalt battery, so they work with any DeWalt 20-volt tool. If you don't want to buy these, you can make a holster out of PVC pipe or even scrap wood. I glued together 3 small scraps of teak left over from the cart to make a block the exact size I needed. Then I used tape to make a template to line up the drill holes. For this to work, the holes have to be perfectly centered. This wood is pretty hard, so I pre-drilled everything. Here's how the template works to transfer the location of the holes. I used a 3/16 drill bit so the screws could move freely, allowing the block to be tightly pulled against the back of the cart. This shampoo bottle is for wood glue, and it now has its home on this little shelf. I lay out a rough design with some scraps and then cut them to size. After arranging the pieces so the grain flows nicely, I cut a 45-degree angle on the sides. Then I cut a slot along the edge of each piece so a 5mm plywood piece can slide in and act as the bottom. I use tape to hold it together while the glue sets. Once dry, sanded and finished, I mounted it to the cart using the same tape template method. This small clamp rack was quick to make and works great. First, I laid out my clamps and found a piece of wood big enough to hold them. It's better to start oversized. You can trim it down later. To make the slots for the clamps, I picked a drill bit slightly bigger than the shaft of the clamp, but smaller than the jaw. I laid out where the screw holes would go. The exact measurements depend on your clamps, but I put mine about 1.5 inches from the edge with 1 inch between each hole. Using a square, I drew lines for the slots, then cut along them with a jigsaw. I cut 2 small pieces of wood for triangular side supports and drew the angle I wanted. I taped them together so I could cut both at the same time while keeping my fingers out of the way. With the slots cut, I trimmed off the extra wood from the end to make the piece symmetrical. I attached the clamp rack to the cart with pocket hole screws. Easier to drill before assembly. Finally, I glued and nailed everything together. I wanted to keep my most frequently used router bits organized and close at hand. I have both 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch shank bits. After cutting a block of wood that fits the available drawer space, I laid out the spots for the bits in pencil. I'd recommend using a drill bit slightly larger than the shank of the router bit so they can slide in and out easily. After sanding, I wiped a simple stain on the block so it looks a little nicer. Whenever I make drawers, I try to make it so the wood grain across the drawer fronts flows as continuously as possible from each drawer to the next. The ideal way would be to cut all the fronts from the same piece of wood and keep them in order, but in this case, I just have 2 pieces of teak, 4 inches wide by 8 feet long each. Most of my drawer faces will be taller than 4 inches, so I'll need to take a different approach. I cut the long pieces to a length slightly wider than the drawer faces need to be to have a little room for error. It's important to keep the pieces in order while cutting. Now I have the pieces laid out in order. If I turn the pieces like this and put them edge to edge, I can get an almost matching grain pattern across the cut. It's okay to try different orientations to see what looks best. Laid out like this, it's already hard to see where one piece ends and the next begins. I glue the pieces into one panel, careful to keep them in order. After the glue dried, I applied matching wood filler to hide any gaps and imperfections, and then sanded. I cut the entire piece to the width of the cabinet opening. Mine is 6 millimeters to allow for a gap between the drawer faces and the sides of the box. I then cross-cut the panel into pieces the height of the drawer faces, being careful to keep everything in order. Numbering the pieces and marking their orientation is helpful. It's a good idea to do a test fit before continuing. Once I cut out notches for the drawer handles and finished with polyurethane, I began to install the drawer faces. I pre-drilled screw holes in the drawer fronts first, to make things easier later. I'm going to use playing cards as shims to get even gaps all around. First, push the drawer face all the way to one side and see how many cards will fit into the gap. Then divide this stack in 2 and use the cards to shim an even gap on each side. I then repeated the process going top to bottom. Glue the drawer faces to the drawers, using the shims to set the gap. I ran out of cards, so I had to use some scraps of 5mm plywood to set the top and bottom gap. I realized that these notches in the drawer faces would allow me to secure them with clamps as well. This isn't 100% necessary, but is a nice bonus when possible. If you're installing drawer pulls, at this point you could run screws through the same holes where the drawer pulls would go to get the same effect as clamping. Once the glue is dry, I run screws in from the backside to further secure the drawer fronts. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video about the jig I used to cut out the handles for the drawer faces. If you liked the video, consider subscribing to my channel. It's easy to do, and it makes a huge difference in helping me to continue making videos about the topics you find interesting. Speaking of topics, let me know in the comments if you have a topic you'd like to see a video on. Thanks for your time and attention. You are appreciated.